Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Making Light Two Humans Being. I'm Julie here. With me, as always, is the fabulous Kate Fago. And today we are going to, after much conversation and debate, we're going to talk about how to stay in alignment when the world is going off its axis. That's how it feels. At least on my side of the pond. So because I had this thing happen to me this morning. So on some days, my husband and I only have one car. And we did this consciously because I work from home. Why do I have to have a second car just for a convenience standpoint? Like, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Plus finances, just scaling back. So any hoozle. So I'm driving him to work this morning. And the way we go, he likes to take the longer route that's through like really tall trees, and we'll see deer and turkey and all that. However, when I'm driving in that area, which I love, I tend to go slower because I never know if there's going to be a deer or a turkey or a bunny or skunk, and I'm not the one to hit it, right? So, but it is 40 miles an hour. So I am going the speed limit. Well, actually I was going a tad faster. I was probably going 43. And this woman, as I get to the end of this part of the drive, and there's a stoplight coming up ahead, there's a woman that I've noticed has been on my ass the entire time. And where I live now, people are so aggressive. They're constantly right on your ass. They whip around you when you're driving already 10 miles over the speed limit. It's very overwhelming to drive now. I really don't. I used to love it. I used to love it. I had a little sports car back in the day, loved it. Now I hate it. Anyway. So I realized this woman's on my ass, but I checked my speed and I'm like, no, I'm going 43. In that moment, I was like, I'm going to do what I feel is right. I'm not going to worry about this woman. I can no longer see. She's so close to me. I can't see her headlights. I can't see her grill. I can only see her. I'm like, my dog's in the back too, which also makes me nervous because I don't want anybody hitting us and like injuring my dog. So anyway, so I'm just like, I'm just going to drive, look at the pretty trees, and I'm just kind of slowly watching for deer, see what I can find. Anyways, so as I get closer to the stoplight, she reams her horn at me. So I take my foot off the gas before I had to, and I see her doing this, like speed it up is how I interpret it. And she makes a move to go around me so that she's in front of me and can pass me, which is in a no passing zone. Legally, she can't do it. Really, space-wise, she kind of can't either. But as I see what she's trying to do, I take my foot off the gas even more. And as I look up, the light turns yellow. So I stop because I stop at yellow. I'm finding in this country, yellow means actually go faster. It doesn't mean slow. It means go faster so you can beat the red light. And then even as the light turns red, they still go through the intersection. So like now I even pause a few minutes before I go through the intersection because I've seen so many close calls, whole thing. Anyway, so by then I realize the light's turning yellow. So I'm like, gonna stop. Oh my God, this woman loses her shit. And I'm just like, because you decided to honk your horn at me, and which I actually slowed down because I was enjoying my drive, actually slowed down. That's what actually made me really miss the light, because I would have made the light. She still wouldn't have, she probably would have run it anyway. Any hoozle. So the light turns green. I turn, she gets in the other lane to get up onto the highway. And there is a huge, massive truck going like 2 miles an hour. Totally makes her go slow. And I was just like, oh, I hope you get to your destination fast. But I just thought it was interesting. Like I was very present about, I'm just going to stay driving.
So it didn't fluster you, because I must admit that I will not go faster if people go right up my arse. But I will eventually pull over because it just freaks me out.
Yeah. Sometimes I have pulled over, but I mean, I'm in a 40 mile an hour zone. I'm not going to go that much faster. There's kids about too, like, and dogs. Like, this isn't a speedway. So, but used to get me flustered. It used to actually make me really angry. Mm-hmm. And then I would even slow down and make them go slower and watch them freak out. But then I would always get really worried that I was about to get hit, because road rage is a thing here and people here have guns. So I don't want to get shot. I say as I laugh, but it's actually an actual true danger, which is, oh, that's a whole nother thing, I guess, that could form me out of alignment, is the whole gun thing. But anyway, so yeah, but I was just like, I was just like enjoying that I didn't get angry. I didn't get scared. I didn't adjust my speed. I did notice that I was going slightly over. So therefore I did do some justification, which is still ego, right? But I just thought it was also interesting that because she beeped, she took away any opportunity to make that light. And I thought that was interesting.
And when you say to someone, I hope you enjoy your journey, or I hope you get it, do you feel that genuinely, or is it just paying lip service?
It's a practice, because sometimes it's the alternative to saying fuck you. I will be quite honest. Sometimes it's, instead of me, I catch myself wanting to flip him off and say something. And so it's this practice now of like, okay, no, wait, I hope you're, and then I can feel myself like settle back into alignment when I say that. And then I do mean it. I do mean it. It just takes me, it's like a heartbeat skip. It's like, didn't start that way, but I ended that way. So maybe I'll start that way. It's the goal.
I don't, it's been a while since anyone's tailgated me, so I can't remember how I react.
But anything, you can think of something else that takes you out of alignment like that.
Oh, millions of things.
Yeah.
But the thing that started this conversation, because I think I said this to you last week, this is a culture thing between the Americans and the British, that on the one hand, you guys are so right on about stuff, everything, really, we're quite behind in a lot of women's rights, human rights, I think especially women equality. Like working for an American company as I do, it's never been an issue as a woman in an American company. So I know that I have benefited from that. And that, a lot of, this may be ignorance, and that because most of my information comes from American TV, but I feel like you're further along with gender equality, and not gender equality.
Gender equality, yeah, no.
I don't mean gender equality. I mean like sexuality and
openness to different and sexual identification and
it may just be that I mix in different circles. I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, you mix. But then.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I don't mix with young people. Is really what I'm saying. No. Because that's where you learn acceptance and that. And then there's a bit of me that goes, but you know what? Our generation made those young people. So we had a part of that. But then you have things like, what's going on with your abortion laws? And I'm like, what? Like, I don't know how America can be so fucking right on about stuff, and then about other stuff that I would put in a category of, it never to be reopened again, sort of thing. You just assume it's part of the furniture. So I'm getting excited and my heart's going again. For the benefit of viewers, I've pulled a muscle in my chest. If I go, I'm not having a heart attack. I've just got, I think it's an intercostal muscle pain. Words fail me.
Yes, words fail me too, because I don't understand. And I've said, we've talked about this a bit in episodes, in how it shows up in like my conversations with my family. I don't understand how people have gotten so angry and angry about, this is mine and don't you dare. But at the same time, I'm also going to tell you exactly what to do. And this whole, like, it's just amazing. And I guess it was there all along. And many of us didn't realize it. So I understand like the pain that's behind it. I also have just learned, I think I said this last week maybe, or the week before, that it's not I just learned that it's not my, like through all the work that we do, spiritual stuff, it's like not my role to understand, it's my role to be the light and stay here in a place of love. But I will tell you, I just don't understand why there is this movement to limit people on what they do, who they are, and all the things, while at the same time, and even when I say limit what they do, then the gun thing comes to mind, and we should limit what type of guns. But I just don't understand why someone has to have, like, I'm gonna probably go all over the board, because there's just so much noise around all of the violent type stuff. But it's like, why do people have to have guns? One, if you're not going to hunt, I don't understand but it's not up to me to understand either. Why would you have something that could easily take a life? And yet at the same time, many of these people, these types of issues overlap, right? So at the same time then, but you want to make sure that a woman can't be in control of her own body, so that if an abortion is needed, a medical procedure that relates to healthcare, which is how I prefer to talk about it, because people go to abortion instead of the whole woman. None of this makes any sense.
I don't like guns, and that, although since I lived in the country, I can see the benefit of them in some cases, when you dispatching of wounded animals and stuff like that. But there's a bit of me that understands what, because of your culture, the right to bear arms, and fine, do whatever I don't approve of it, but I sort of understand where that comes from, that because they perceive that somebody's taking a right away from. What I don't understand is this need to get into somebody else's knickers about what's going on with them. That I don't get. And that is, I could be completely wrong, but is this not all white Protestant Christian morality or something? Is it not? I mean, this is sort of middle class Bible bashing, like, the type of, there's some case, I think it was quite famous at the time, because the guy defended himself. And people that complained about lyrics and rock music and stuff that's the sort of people that I think object to this. But it's like, you are personally not affected by this. This is not your daughter. This is not your child. You're not supporting the child. That's what I don't understand, is why are you so focused on this in the first place?
Yeah.
And also, maybe the idea of somebody wantonly ripping out children left, right, and centre, unborn children, is not very pleasant. But the reality is, you don't have to go very far to find a situation, that is nothing like that. Right. It's like, I just don't understand why there's need to I don't know, punish other people for something you believe in, and I don't get. I don't understand that.
No.
How does it even come up? Are you just walking along one day and you go, God damn it, I can't believe that people kill unborn children, then you go off and you form a club? What? How does it come up?
It's kind of fascinating how that one particularly came up, because it actually has its roots in racism. I think we talked about it maybe like a year ago.
I remember a conversation, but I actually can't remember the conclusions.
When Texas passed its law, this is when we first talked about abortion, or women's right to health care, is how I like to frame the conversation. Because Glennon Doyle, in her book Untamed, she did research as to how abortion actually came up, and it had to do with the church, in like the Protestant church in the United States, having to do something with segregation and desegregation, but in an effort to get around it, they took people's eyes off that racism ball and went, oh no, wait, look over here, abortion. So it was like a
seriously?
Yeah, I mean, I can find it. I gotta say it.
No, I believe you, but
yeah, I mean, and now we can put it back in the show notes. But it's
because did you not say that up until that point a child was not a living thing until it was born?
Yeah, which is still, I think,
and
the case.
From what we know of That's controversial, isn't it? But from what I understand of, and I don't remember what book it is, the soul does not fully inhabit the child until it's born anyway. It comes in and out, but is that how you understand it as well?
That's how
I understand we have no proof of that. I'm not suggesting that we write laws on Kate's women fancy of what she thinks happens in that time, but it's very interesting because I would have thought it's interesting that such a change happened not as long ago as we think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like when you realize that, you know, Catholic nuns are still doing horrible things to unmarried mothers. It's not that long ago.
Right. And actually, I was just looking to see if I could find it because I know I saved it because we talked about it the last time. There we go. It's right here. Okay. So yeah, she says in her book, Untamed, trying to open it. Okay. So in the 1970s, this is what she says. It's in the chapter Decals. It's on page 241 of Untamed. It says, in the 1970s, a few rich, powerful, white, and then in parentheses, outwardly straight men got worried about losing their right to continue racially segregating their private Christian schools and maintaining their tax-exempt status. Checking if you want clarification on that, I can explain in a minute. Those men began to feel their money and power being threatened by the civil rights movement. In order to regain control, they needed to identify an issue that would be emotional and galvanizing enough to unite and politically activate their evangelical followers for the first time. They decided to focus on abortion. Before then, a full 6 years after the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision, the prevailing evangelical position was that life began with the baby's first breath. So you're right, Kate. Most evangelical leaders had been indifferent to the court's decision in Roe, and some were cited as supporting the ruling, but not anymore. They wrote a new memo using freshly feigned outrage and rhetoric, calling for, quote, a holy war, which I want to come back to violent language, by the way, calling a holy war to lead the nation back to the moral stance that made America great, end quote. They sponsored a meeting of 15,000 pastors called the Religious Roundtable to train pastors on how to convince their congregations to vote for anti-choice, anti-gay candidates. This is how they disseminated the memo down to evangelical ministers who passed it down to pews across America. And that memo read, and then it starts off with to be aligned with Jesus, but I only took the picture of that page.
So remind me again what the Roe Wade thing was.
Roe v. Wade. I couldn't tell you who was. I think
no, just what the outcome of it was.
Oh, the outcome of it was that abortion is legal in this country. A woman's right to choose is protected under the law. And so when they decide, they let it slip, someone let it slip that they were going to overturn their own court decision, which would therefore then make abortion, well, I would say abortion is illegal, but it's not. Now that I take that back, because we were talking about this a little bit earlier, what it does is it doesn't provide the safety net that abortion is legal in this country. Instead, now states decide whether it's safe or illegal, or whether it's legal or illegal. And so already, because Texas has outlawed it, Oklahoma has outlawed it, so many of these red states have outlawed it, so that now there are states in the country where it's legal, and they're going to become these islands of safety. The problem is, outside of the fact that it should be a safe medical procedure for any woman who needs it, but then you really affect women of low socioeconomic status who cannot afford to travel to these places. And so now the coat, so they do, coat hangers was a typical instrument previous to.
I don't get, Julie, it's like beyond, we're talking about alignment. I can't even get my head around it, never mind feel okay about it.
Yeah.
It is utterly and completely beyond me how anybody thinks that they want to go back to women scraping around, taking drugs, scraping around with, this is,
it's just, it's all fascinating. And at the same time, for me, hand in hand goes this whole conversation around guns because we had a mass shooting in Texas not, a couple weeks ago. I mean, we've had more mass shootings than there are days of the year, and continue to do so. And
so what do the gun supporters, what is their defense? Because nobody wants that to happen, one assumes, right?
No, guns.
So what do they say? What is their defense? If you say, well, we want to outlaw guns so that people can't get their hands on them, what is their answer to that?
You can't take my guns away. It's under the Second Amendment, right?
That's it. They don't try and blame, well, there aren't enough controls in place, or there aren't enough this in, just end of.
I don't ever hear that argument. It's and I don't want to say all gun owners, because there's a whole group, particularly after this last massive school shooting, there's a whole group of gun owners that are like, hey, we want universal background checks. We want the safety measures put in place.
So are there no controls at all?
What we have isn't very strong. What we have sometimes isn't enforced. We don't fund the manpower needed behind the enforcement a lot of the times as well. And for me, I guess the biggest question that I have is, if we were so pro-life, meaning we wanted to help the unborn, and then if we're so pro-life, then why are we so adamant about having such weapons? Guns, one thing, but you have AK, you have the automatic rifles. Like, why do we have to have all those? If we're so, like, what stance are we on here? Are we doing pro-life? Are we doing pro-gun? Are we doing, like,
Are they really the same people though? Because to me they are distinct. Because the only people who seem to care about abortion are women for some reason, because obviously it doesn't affect men. So they don't seem to really care one way or the other. And I would also argue that most people that care about guns are men. Maybe that's generalization.
Well, personally, I see both. I see a lot of men coming out for pro-choice. I see a lot of women coming out for gun control. A lot of women, and I see a lot of women coming out for gun control, or for gun rights. So it's not exclusive. To me, it's more of like the moral the people making those moral arguments, they tend to cross.
It's interesting though that you make that distinction between people wanting guns. You're sort of saying they have a disrespect for life to some extent, but are very pro-life in a medical procedure. So I'm trying not to say abortion, but I don't know what your other phrase is. But the other thing that occurred to me, which is gone now because I stumbled over the word. Just give me a second. Oh, it doesn't matter. Keep going, it'll come back to me. Yeah. That was a really profound point I had there.
But to go back to the original topic of how to stay in alignment when all of this bullshit is, and I'm just gonna call it bullshit because it's just, because like for us, or we've talked about trying to stay in this place of love. Everything is love or fear. Pick love or fear. So it's hard for me to, I'll tell you, it's hard for me to watch the news, and I am a foreign affairs, current affairs junkie. I do like understanding. However, it's just really hard to find that information anymore, because regardless of what in this country, what media outlet you follow, and I think kind of in yours too, the language is so inflammatory on either side of the fence. It's no longer, it's really, you can find it, but you really have to do your work. And I do think to some degree that's also, as an American citizen, it's my duty to find the actual just reporting. No emotional bullpucky on top of it. Just give me the facts and allow me to uncover this. The other side of that, though, in our schools, critical thinking is no longer taught. And so we are raising, you can see the entire strategy, if you will, if there is a strategy to keep certain groups of people in power and not allow other people to have access to education, healthcare, you can see how the removal of teaching of critical thinking was a key component in that strategy. Because if we have a whole group of people who can't think critically and can only do what they're actually told to do based on whatever news channel they watch.
That was the whole point of school, apparently. It was to prepare people for working in factories. It wasn't to educate us.
as education became mass produced previous to the industrial age. And actually, this is really interesting because this is pulling, so many things are pulling me back to this documentary, I can never say that word, documentary on HBO about George Carlin, which I'll come back to. But before the industrial age and then the mass production, education went through this whole system to become its own mass produced thing, where every child, at least in this country, we have standardized tests. Everybody has to do the same thing. And we lost sight of every human being into being their own unique, fabulous being, and everybody learns differently. And so we've created this whole thing about, I don't do this as well as that person. And we took critical thinking out. Anyway, but before, when we had critical thinking in school, and it was all part of human culture, in this George Carlin documentary, Chris Rock actually says, because I don't know, are you familiar with George Carlin at all? Okay, you would love him. You would love him. So he was in the 70s, 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s, but he really came to fame in the 70s and 80s. He was very outspoken and very much critiqued the hypocrisy that is the American, Western, but American culture. Called it out all the time. And he had a reputation for being angry. He didn't start that way, but that's where he finally found his voice. And he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. He was one of my favorites. I always loved watching him. But anyways, Judd Apatow did a 4-hour documentary on him for HBO. It's in two 2-hour segments. Because his voice, even though he's passed away, his voice is very much on this time. And Chris Rock said about him, back in the day, centuries ago, we used to have philosophers. And people would turn to philosophers to understand the meaning of life and the human's connection to the universe and all of that stuff. And now that stuff still stands and it's still relevant, still discussed today. We don't have those people anymore. We now have comedians like Chris Rock, George Carlin, Jerry Seinfeld, those whoever, Izzy, who's the gentleman? Who's
Izard?
Yes, love him. Just, that bring up social issues so that we can see them and go, oh yeah, that's kind of silly. So George Carlin has a whole bit on abortion about the pro-life stance. And they're like, they care about you when you're in the womb. But the moment you're born, they take away your Head Start, which is the early education program, they take away your food, they don't give a shit about you once you're born, which is women,
the whole
yeah.
Interesting, because you said that when you started to say about the Roe Wade and how they that you said white outwardly straight men.
Outward, yeah. She has in her outwardly's in parentheses because so it is it's not anecdotal. There is research that so many of the people that fight against rights for LGBTQ are themselves.
Is that because they're scared?
Yes. So fear. So they've chosen fear over love.
And do they know that they are? Or is it? No, do they know that they are not heterosexual?
I don't know. It's not me. I'm guessing to some degree they do, but they're so afraid. It's just,
I see that they don't want to be identified with it, so they turn against it.
Yeah, I mean, like I equate it to me being, when we were going through classes with Danielle, and she would ask me, "Where's your anger? Why aren't you angry?" And I'm like, I'm angry. Like and then I see. Like you have to kind of have it put in your face. And I do think that when you are so closeted, and then you see somebody that you're like, oh, that I can see how it kind of unlocks that closet, but then what the heck do you do with it if you're
Julie, this is so my answer is that I can't. And this is why I can't stay in alignment. No words. I just find it abhorrent, and it's beyond me. And what's interesting is when I remember my point finally, when you're saying how you see it about the guns versus pro-life, shall we say, Whereas to me, it's almost like in the gun world, they are defending their rights for whatever is perceived to be right. And yet in the other one, you're trampling all over someone else's.
Yeah.
This is what I would go so far, controversial as it is, to say that I understand terrorism more than I understand this. I understand terrorism because there are people who are driven to a point of desperation where they believe it's the only way they can get their message across. Whereas the pro-life, what you're doing is essentially none of your fucking business.
Yeah, no.
That's that's what I don't get, is how you can be so fucking obsessed with what is going on in something that is essentially a very difficult, very private, quite often heartbreaking situation for someone to be in. Why anyone would think that anybody takes that as a, I don't know, but is taking a piss in some way, is careless about this, thinks it's funny, like it's just beyond me. I don't know how anybody could, under any circumstances, imagine that somebody would willingly and knowingly and recklessly put themselves in this position because they didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's just
mind-boggling
to me.
The thing too that boggles my mind is that you have the politics, you have the economics, and you have the social, or I don't want to say moral, because moral, that's up to human interpretation. That's not God saying that, I don't think, but there's societal, social issues. And it's interesting to me how you have the political left and right, you have economy of rich, poor, asset-based, income-based, you have capitalism, communism, socialism, you have different economic models. And then you have all this social stuff, which really should just be about the golden rule. And yet we have taken the various things that we want to control or not to control for our economic and political gain. The whole thing's backward. I'm just realizing and I think this is the guide. So telling me too, like the whole thing's backwards. We should be leading with take care of your brother, be your brother's keeper in a good way, like love, choose between love and fear. What helps human beings? Access to healthcare, the right to go to school and not have to do active shooter drills. I can't imagine being a 5-year-old kid and having to do an active shooter drill. So what is it every single day that this is how I stay in alignment? So I'm kind of going around with, how can I every single day look at any given person and see the light in them and go, okay, I see you, Mitch McConnell. I do not understand you. However, you came to serve a purpose. I don't quite understand the purpose. I'm not here to understand the purpose, but you're still a human being. I would not try to trample your rights. So that's the only way I can handle it, because I can't to watch the news unless I can find stuff that is actually informative. It's just really, really hard because you just end up screaming back at the television.
Yeah. No, I just have to leave it alone. It's just so wrong. And also I cannot, other than the phrase, and this is not a kind phrase, but it's like meddling, interfering, self-serving, patronizing, all, who the fuck are you all that comes up. It's like, who are these busybodies? But then I reserve that anger for a lot of things, like energy companies at the moment who are making massive profits while the rest of the world's going through crisis, and the fact that nobody is that, and there was some article, I really can't look at this stuff because it just tips me over the edge, was some justification from the energy company as to why cutting, I can't remember why them cutting prices wouldn't help. Like, you're like, what?
Yeah.
It was something along the lines of, you will be slowing down our investment. In other words, they're not going to touch the profits.
Yeah.
It would be coming out of investment. To which I say, boo-hoo. I don't care.
Well, you don't have their profit and their investors' dividends. So it comes right back to money. Like, love is not based on money. we've created this whole value system and this whole exchange. And I was listening to a podcast the other day about this asset economy, which is what we live in. The more I have and the less you have, the better I am. Like that, this whole, and I'm paraphrasing what this really smart woman had to say. And she didn't actually say that. She was just talking about, let's look at asset-based economy, which is where so many people have a lot of things and a lot of people don't have hardly anything, versus what she was citing Germany has made really hard decisions over the past 10, 20 years, I guess. I have to go back and listen to it, where they're trying to move their economy to an income-based economy so that everybody earns and can spend money on things that they need instead of this acquisition of real estate, cars, like big, huge material ticket items. It's a different mentality. I don't quite have my head around it, but I thought it was super interesting too. But
Interesting.
yes.
Interesting. We should probably wrap it up, Julie. There's a lot of anger in there.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know. There's so much.
But isn't it interesting though, just this last point, it's like, because it's so much ill in this world, and I think like all my gripes about coronavirus and how it's been handled, and that a lot of it's about money and the energy companies, and it's all about money. I don't understand the abortion thing, like, because that's not about money, is it? I mean, it might be somewhere down the line. How is it about money?
Well, originally it was about money. Originally, the thing that I read from Glennon Doyle's book was
because it was protecting
they were
something else that was going on.
Yeah, they were going to lose a tax.
But now,
now, in my humble opinion, I believe, okay, there is still money involved in that. If you have the mentality of, I have to, so much stuff is for me and you can't have any of it, why would I allow women to have health care? Until we look at women as equals in the job place, in healthcare, access to education, all things, we're not truly equal. I mean, we still get 70 cents on the dollar. But even from a healthcare perspective, it's really hard for women's diseases to be talked about as erectile dysfunction. So until that happens and people have this mentality of, I can make more money on men's healthcare and not understanding, well, not that I want women's healthcare, money made on healthcare, but until we get out of this have and have nots mentality, it's still really driven by money. If people still think that men make the world go round, the emphasis still puts everything on men, instead of, if we share, have like women hold up one half of the sky, I think is the name of the book. There's another book out there that talks about female economy. When you bring us in, when you make us equal, and that's also why racism has economic impacts. The more racist a country is, the less, they've done all this research, the less the economy can grow, because you're cutting off a whole group of people who can contribute and really take part if you just extended your hand. It's extremely interesting to think of it that way. So, yeah, I don't know. Off on fireworks. That's another topic of fear and love, but I really don't. Another thing I'm grappling with right now is, why does everybody have to light fireworks on almost every day? Because everybody's freaking out, but that's another story.
So the summary would be,
from
Julie's perspective, is to say, I hope you get to your journey safely.
That's one.
And Kate's perspective, in whatever context that may be, and Kate's perspective is, if you can't stomach it, stay away from it. And that's the only thing. Like, I do not look at it. I don't talk about it. I have with you, and you can see what happens. And I'm in quite a calm, controlled fashion. Fortunately, Gary doesn't know about this. He does talk about energy companies a lot, but he doesn't know about all this that's going on in the States. Otherwise, I would find that very difficult. He does talk about some politics, and I just make light of it, and just don't go there, because can't.
Well, I don't disagree with looking away from it, because if you do feel that resistance and that coming up, then clearly you're falling out of alignment, and therefore look away. The other thing, though, that helps me, because I do want to know what's going on in the world, is that I allow myself the grace that it is not my job on this planet is not to go out and fight for that. There are, I mean, we have how many billions of humans?
Yes.
There are humans that have been assigned to go out and protect and fight and come at things from that place of love for that reason. My role on this planet is to more unite people with inner being, nature, animals, all that stuff. And so I'm going to focus on that and trust, because that's a big thing for me, is to trust that everybody else is doing their job. They may need you. Even Mitch McConnell, who's bringing up all this bad stuff so we can bring it into the light. That's my belief. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Julie. That's
I hope that was helpful. I don't know.
It's very interesting. I don't know if it's helpful, but it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, all that came into my head was, and that's all we've got time for. And I don't know where that comes from. It must be a TV program. Well, folks, that's all we got time for. We could talk about this all night. We probably could, actually, and I could get really frothy if I let myself. But it's not good for me. It's not good for me, Julie. And I look forward to the time. There are some topics, I will say that I have learned there are some topics where I'm okay with that stuff now. When Gary goes on about the Tories, for example, now, I can stand my ground, but this is too, yeah. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and I'm sure you all have your own opinions on it. Put them down there, put them in the comments, and you can follow us on Facebook. You can subscribe to here on our YouTube channel, and we'd really like to hear from you. Either comment on what we discuss or things you'd like us to discuss in the future. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well, and I think that's everything. We're not yet on TikTok. We could be. I have to think of something funky, don't know. Okay, so that's Julie Hurt. I'm Kate Foggo. We're two humans, two very trying beings, two humans very trying very human to be. Two humans, we're making light. That's what we're doing. See you next time.